So I want kids to understand the spirituality of who they are and how perfectly they're created, and that they can learn anything they choose to learn, but they're being overtaught, overeducated on the wrong things, rather than being told a little boy, it's crazy to talk to yourself. No, son, you better talk to yourself. Every day I wake up, who do I talk to first? I talk to self. I tell myself to get up, get ready, get dressed, go to the restroom. And if I don't know how to talk to myself, by the time I get to the schoolhouse, I am going to cause all kind of problems because I have not mastered how to be nice to thyself. Schools don't teach that. And that's what's missing.
So Zach, what are the challenges within the education system right now? Because I feel like
if I had to take the top three, number one would be they're educating our kids too much. On the wrong things. See, we went through an era during the civil rights movement, and we forced integration, which don't get us started on that situation. But when our kids became integrated, they also started with what we call the miseducation of a child. Now, fast forward in the 2000s, I would say as early as 2010 up into 2023, and what we have is overeducated child. But our kids are not knowledgeable because they are in school to be schooled and they're not being taught. So they're being overeducated on everything other than what's important to survive in the real world. So what I want to do is I want to uneducate our kids on certain things so that they can have the intuitive spirit internally to begin to develop a sense of pride in oneself, love of thyself, and then being able to reflect on what they are doing wrong, okay? So they can make better decisions. Everything that's been given to them in the classroom day is not good for them. And it causes distractions, it causes anger, it causes bitterness. And so what I want to do is uneducate them on the lies that they've been taught, and then redevelop their minds through new knowledge. And that's going to be the thing to fix our kids. Number two, if we were just to talk about high school students who take this ACT test, a lot of schools are not implementing that a student, those below students, cannot receive an attendance failure. So we need to go back to a discipline. So if a kid decides that they want to miss 90 days out of the 180 days, there's no true penalty. They can't make them go to school. There's no attend. I can't fail a student for not showing up to my class. Okay, that becomes a issue, what we're seeing with the low decline, because if you're not in class, you're not receiving anything that's going to help you build upon old knowledge in order for you to step into a testing system and do well. And then in Florida, we have this new thing we call a Hope Scholarship Law. A Hope Scholarship Law allows for a student who have been bullied or witnessed bullying or feel harassed or harass somebody to say, hey, I'm a victim. Look at me. I don't want to go to school here no more. And then the school must allow that student, if there's space to go somewhere else, they take that FTE, which is full-time enrolled dollar or voucher the kid get, and they can go somewhere else and be educated. So those are just 3 of 100 issues that I recognize just here in my state that is going wrong with education, that is causing students to not do well on tests such as the ACT or a SAT test, because their numbers have plundered as well.
So, I mean, do you feel like there's like an issue with teacher to student ratios or like resource allocations, or
Well, that tampers into other areas of discussion, because some schools underserve or underrepresent certain type of students and their small classrooms settings. The private schools are not doing better than the public schools, just being honest. The charter schools are not doing better than the public school. We need an overhaul on all the schools. Okay. When you ask that question, I'm trying to be nice, but I'm gonna take off the nice hat, the political correct hat. And I'm gonna say to you boldly, money is the answer, Richard. Now, what's your question?
Mm,
See, I'll be careful on the airways, but I'm gonna say what I have to say. Children are the new cotton.
mm,
Educational system has lost their cotton picking minds, and so every child is looked upon as a dollar. This is why we order vouchers so I can set up a corporation, provide services, make money off of kids, and there's no accountability. See, most people don't understand if a kid's been in school for 13 years, and so we'll take 13, right? Take out my little calculator real quick, and we'll say, okay, we have 13 years, and let's say that 13 years and the average FTE, we'll just say times, let's say 7,000. We're going to lowball. So we spend $91,000 on a kid to be educated. When it comes down to kids that look like you and I, once they finish school, who've taken this ACT, only 5% of those students who have taken the ACT are college ready.
man.
During the 2022 report that we will display on the screen, it shows that there was over 150,000 students that look like you and I, just using us as an example. I don't want to talk about nobody else. Let's keep it about us right now. That only 5% of those students were deemed to be college ready on the ACT test. That means we spent $91,000 on these kids, and they come out of school and they're not even college ready. $91,000. Nobody talks about that. These kids been in school for about 14,040 hours because they are required by law to be in school for 180 days. And then you talk that by 13 years, and they're in school for 6 hours a day. And you mean to tell me I gave these kids 14,000 plus hours of training, and only 5% of them are prepared? That's minority students. And it's shameful.
Educators, administrators, if you in this chat right now, or if you tapped in right now in this part, please drop some comments. Let us know. Give us your input and your mindset when it comes to these test scores dropping. I wouldn't say an all-time low, but
well,
it's
it's
the lowest
30
it's
year
been
low.
in 30 years, 30
Yeah.
year low. So
It's
it's
gonna get
definitely an issue.
it's only gonna get low. It's gonna go lower.
Lower.
It's gonna get lower and lower because what is happening across the nation, and we'll speak from Florida right now, our great state of Florida, the Sunshine State, is now they have a new test. This guy named Jeremy Tate came up with this idea. We're gonna do what we call classical learning test, backed by the Heritage Group, ultra conservative group. Now they in the game. I would classify ACT as a liberal group, a liberal testing company, and I would call COT, Classical Learning Test, the conservative group. And so everybody's jockeying for a position to have their test utilized because at the end of the day, money is the answer. Now, what's your question? And so this classical learning test is derivative of about 120 questions, 40 that deals with English writing, another 40 dealing with math, and then the last part dealing with some logic statements. I don't want to misrepresent their brand. I'm not serving or supporting them in their endeavors. I'm just giving you the facts. And what you have to do is show that you're prepared on these 120 question tests. What is hilarious is that they believe that they have a foolproof system in place that students will be able to use any device and take that test at home and then submit their scores, and then the colleges are going to accept it. This is one reason why a lot of colleges are going to a no test system, meaning that you don't have to have a test score to get in their college.
Wow.
Because no one is buying the fact that these tests are helpful or very useful. Well, I just told you they are, because at a minimum, you earn scholarships, but at another minimum, It shows you where your kids are once they finish school. It's way too many kids going off to college who have to be remediated.
Mm.
13th grade now. You're in college paying someone to put you in a 13th grade that does not even count towards your major. You're just shelling out money, running
Hey,
up.
I'll be real. I had one of those classes, man. You know what I mean? Hey, I think it was a math class, I believe. But yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm pretty sure some other listeners can be honest with themselves and say they did the same thing. But if not, whatever. That
Remediated.
was
But
me.
that culture during that time was a little different
Yeah.
because we had better educators, we had better things happening. And then the kid had a desire to want to be there, and they had a reason to be there. So they worked harder, and so they were able to earn a degree. But now the students are taking 6 years, 7 years, 8 years to earn a 4 year degree. And then once they come out of school, they have massive debt and have to be retrained, which costs more money. And that's the big issue right now. I understand that there's a lot of people who are not great test takers. If you're not a great test taker, go see a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a therapist. Find out why, and then get test extensions. Because for clients who have test anxiety, that's not an excuse. Get diagnosed with it. Show the powers that be, your guidance counselors. Use that certificate, that slip, and they will honor you by giving you extra time. So stop making excuses. Oh, I'm a bad test taker. There's a reason why you're a bad test taker. No fault of your own, but don't sit back using that as a reason for why you're scoring low. Go get that time extension and raise your score so that somebody can pay for your college. That's what I tell my clients.
Man, wow, not enough good test takers. Whew. What's the strategy someone can go into a test? I know you say see a therapist or a psychiatrist or whomever to help you become a if you're dealing with psychological things about test taking. But what's the strategy that you can give someone that's like dealing with anxiety before taking the test? Do you
Call
have
the
a tip?
academic. Call the academic doctor. I do an assessment. You know,
Yeah.
shameless plug.
Facts, facts, facts.
Facts. Go to academicdoctor.com and I'll be able to sit down and talk with you about doing an assessment.
Yeah,
But to extend that is an assessment. I need to first assess where your child is at right now. I will strongly recommend that more parents contact me and get an assessment done so we will know exactly where your kids stand when it comes down to their proficiency and their readiness for testing.
yeah,
See, one of the things that makes me a little uncomfortable is that all the media wants to talk about is all these test scores that are low. They talk about the kids can't read, kids are not doing math well, and I call them liars. Reading is not an issue in America with our kids. And I know educators right now saying, what in the heck is this guy talking about? His autism must be really showing up. Reading is not an issue when it comes down to kids in school. Johnny can read. I'm going to say this. The writer of the book, Johnny Can't Read, is a liar. And everybody else who producing books saying that our kids can't read are liars, Richard. I call them out on the air. The issue that we find out now is that our kids cannot comprehend and our kids are having a hard time retaining. See, anybody can call out words, but do you understand the words that you're calling out? Kids have been programmed how to phonetically say words. And yes, we have a few kids who struggle. But when it comes down to a kid sitting down reading and calling out words, they do a incredible job. The problem is reading comprehension is the issue. They're not comprehending. The tests don't measure if you can read or not. The tests measure if you can comprehend what you read. Questions is not about reading. It's about comprehending. When a child read a question, he has to first read. How did he get to know? He read the question. So read is not the issue. It's
Yeah,
did he comprehend what he or she read?
yeah,
And that's what I tell people all the time. We don't have a reading issue. We have a comprehension problem.
yeah.
Until we address the comprehending piece, And until we address the retention of what they comprehend, then the problem is going to always exist. People say, man, that sounds so simple. It is. When I train my students, I train them with the mindset. If I can teach you one new thing, I change your entire world today. Because every time you learn something new, your brain change, which means your world change. If I had the magic wand to hit principals and legislators and educator counselors on one thing, I would make it so that if a kid are required to go to school for 180 days, I would just teach them one new thing a day. Why? That means that I changed their brain 180 times in a school year. See, no one looks at that the calendar year is 365 days in a calendar year. Our kids are only required to go to school for 180 days. So let's just say they're in school for 6 months and they're out of school for 6 months. This is why we're having the comprehension issue. This is why we're having a retention, because they're out of school more than they are in school. Facts. Wow. And so just imagine going in and out of school as much as they are. And how do you think they're going to retain anything? They're not. And you know what? They don't. I'm not saying it. The results are saying it. But there's a reason for this. And it is money is the answer, Richard. Now, what's your question? Somebody is capitalizing off this cotton. I'm being real. I remember we had a talk off the air and I said, Richard, do you know what money made from? Everybody say paper. I'm not going to tell them your answer, but they say paper. But the reality is money is made from linen in America and cotton. When I go in and talk to my students, whether they be black, white, or all those in between, I remind them of two facts that have stuck in my heart since I started becoming more educated on the right things. And that is that when my ancestors got beaten, they got beaten at the speed of sound. The whip is the only known item physically that can travel and break the sound barrier. So you mean to tell me my ancestors who picked cotton, which money's made from, and decided to be humiliated, not by choice, and now I have an opportunity to be educated, and I don't take advantage of it. I think about the whip cracking. And that's the motivation that gives me to want to keep doing this, even in the face of what I'm seeing all across our country with our children. I stay in it because I don't want anything that my folks have gone through to go through it in vain. Yeah. And that's why I work very hard every day, because who I am is a reflection of what we talked about, like your life and live. I am knowledgeable of my DNA is long-term memory. So I'm sitting up, not because someone taught me how to sit up, because my grandfather and his father knew how to sit up. See, memory is a beautiful thing. Yeah. Okay. A lot of things that happens is through memory. Shaping our mind is memory oriented. Talking, memory. Everything is predicated on memory that's been passed to us. Our microscopic cells in our body is based upon memory. Our heart is given to me to function because it's passed down through DNA that my father passed down. So I don't have to teach a heart how to pump. It does it because it's supposed to. I don't have to tell the brain to think. It think because it's supposed to. All I do is add a little bit of knowledge to it, and then it provides understanding, and then wisdom is utilized in this process. But because our education system is so miseducated, we don't let kids know from the beginning that they have all the tools they need to be great. We don't teach that. I'm a spiritual man. I'm a spiritual being. So I want kids to understand the spirituality of who they are and how perfectly they're created, and that they can learn anything they choose to learn, but they're being overtaught, overeducated on the wrong things, rather than being told a little boy, it's crazy to talk to yourself. No, son, you better talk to yourself. Every day I wake up, who do I talk to first? I talk to self. I tell myself to get up, get ready, get dressed, go to the restroom. And if I don't know how to talk to myself, By the time I get to the schoolhouse, I am going to cause all kind of problems because I have not mastered how to be nice to thyself. Schools don't teach that. And that's what's missing.
Yeah, man. That's so good. Once again, educators, administrators, drop something in the comments. Let us know how you feel, what you're thinking about this decline in the education system, if there is one in your perspective, or like we see in the trends that it is a decline in the ACT. What can we do to move this thing in a better direction?
And what we do is we have to preliminarily do an assessment. I've been saying this for years, Richard, and I'm saying it until I'm blue in the face and it falls on ears that can't hear. I'm tired of talking about the pipeline to prison. The solution to the pipeline to prison is to cut the pipe. If we're saying that kids can't read by third grade, which is a lie, that's the reason why they're going to jail. The truth is, kids cannot comprehend well by third grade. And when you can't comprehend, you don't have no discipline and you're not being respectful. So your comprehension leads you down a path of imprisonment. That's the true fact. But if I cut the pipeline and teach kids how to comprehend and how to understand self and to how to respect self and how to value others, we get rid of the violence. Because if you value yourself, you begin to value other people's life. But you know what? We don't do that. And it has nothing to do with I can't read. It's because I can't comprehend. I need you to comprehend what I'm saying. I don't need you to read my body language or read a book. I want you to comprehend and then utilize what you have comprehend for your better good. That's not being taught to our students on how to comprehend. In our beautiful state of Florida now, we do these things called PM1s, PM2s, PM3s, and it's called progress monitoring. And they tell the kids, you took this test and this is how well you did. You're either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. They are none of those things. Wow. And the reason why I understand that is because a kid can go in there and mom and dad just cursed them out. They hadn't eaten anything. They didn't sleep that night. They take this test, and the test is a reflection on what happened before the test. It's not what happened during the test. Those distractions can cause that kid not to do well. That test should not be the determining factor if that kid get promoted or not. But we will do it 3 times within a school year. No one goes in to find out, is that kid eating, sleeping well, if their medication being taken properly, if they're being taught effectively in the classroom. We just assume, and we said the most dangerous things you can do is to assume, take shortcuts, and concern yourself with things that don't concern you. Yeah. And that's the new education system, and it's been that way since integration. Capitalizing off of our kids. Children are the new cotton. White, black, and all those in between. See, I am very fortunate to work with kids who are in boarding schools. I work with some of the wealthiest CEO kids across the United States. I work with kids who go to private institutions. I work with kids who go to public schools, charter schools, Christian schools, Title I schools. So for me, being in this industry for 30 years, I get a chance to see it all. I get to see it all, baby. It's mind-boggling. And somebody says, Zach, out of all the kids that you work with, who's at the best advantage? The boarding school kids. But they're paying for the price. They're paying $50,000 to $60,000 a year. But they're running around with other children who parents can afford to do the $60,000 a year. So they can get on the phone and call them up. And so they guaranteed access to things that other kids cannot have accessibility to. So money is the answer, Richard. Now, what's your question? So if the wealthiest of the wealth and understand the importance of investing in their kids, and I'm not saying those kids are perfect, I'm just saying the accessibility that these kids have when they're in these boarding schools, because I have the raw numbers. They're running circles around our charter schools and our so-called private special schools. My boarding school kids is lighting up the world. I mean that. Why so? Why do you think that? Because there's a level of accountability. If I'm playing 60 stacks, you ain't got to worry about me going to no PTA meeting, none of that stuff. I'm getting feedback. I'm getting onto my kids because at the end of the day, I want a return on investment. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
My kids in the boarding school earns free rides. They can afford to go to college, but they're going for free because my kids in boarding schools are getting 33s to 36. They go anywhere in the country.
Yeah.